Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today we're joined by Keith Trawick, CIO at Stretch Zone. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. Hackers are getting smarter. Is your security keeping up? CyberLink sells industry-leading AI-powered cybersecurity solutions that detect threats in real time, so you know about an attack before the damage is done, not after. Learn more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyber, Lynx.com. And now back to our show. Keith, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Stretch Zone and your role there as CIO?
Yeah, so Stretch Zone started maybe 25 years ago from our founder. And he had a really deep kind of origin personal story where he was able to help his grandfather rehabilitate for some catastrophic kind of physical health and was able to help him return to a full active lifestyle. And it really was around movement and mobility. And what a lot of younger people don't understand is that as you age, being able to tie your shoes or pick something off the shelf or play with your grandkids or play a round of golf, pain-free, it really makes a difference in the quality of life. So he started that and was doing for celebrity trainers and celebrities and all this stuff. And then maybe about 12 years or so ago, we decided to make it a brand and grow it. So I was employee one as part of the group. And now we have 420 some odd locations and should bring on another 75 or 80 this year. So it was super interesting at the beginning because it was basically a category creation. If you have never had a massage just by TVs and movies, you kind of know what a massage is. But if I say, hey, do you want to go get stretched? Well, you really have no idea what that means. So when we would run, set up our Google business profiles or whatever they were called at the time, and, you have to select a category. Well, there was no category to select. So it was really super exciting to see it go from an idea to the first stores opening to now where we are. So it's been quite the journey.
Wow. Okay, I've got some questions there. So
Sure.
Is this, that kind of growth, is this franchise based or is this all, corporate owned?
Yeah, we have some corporate stores, but we're predominantly franchises.
Fantastic.
And the biggest validation for us as a franchise is that most of our growth comes from existing franchisees opening their second, third, and fourth location. So once you have someone in and they kind of really know what the deal is and they are having success and they open additional locations, that's all the validation you can ask for. So we are predominantly franchise based.
That's super cool. All right. And can we dive into that model a little bit? I mean, I think
Sure.
everybody's heard, even if you've not kind of even if you haven't kind of really looked into franchises, I think everybody's heard that if you open up a McDonald's franchise, it's guaranteed, millionaire, blah, blah, blah. Right. And interestingly, there's been some debate on the Chick-fil-A franchise. It looks really good, but turns out they gobble up a ton of money from you and it becomes a real struggle. So can we examine, are you okay with kind of diving into that a little bit, seeing what that looks like, and not to pitch people, but I think it's really fascinating and I'd love to hear more about it.
Sure. I think there are certain things you can talk about as a franchisor. So I would try to, certain things you can't. So I don't want to make any claims to any specific things. But when you're a franchisor, what you're really trying to do is provide systems and training and brand and all of those things and consistency. Because as you mentioned, McDonald's, one of the greatest things about it is a Big Mac is the same in New York as it is in LA, right? Yep. So when people go to McDonald's, they want a Big Mac. They want to know what it is. So you have to provide those things as a franchisor and allow the franchisees to own and operate their own business.
Yep.
So, as it relates to technology, you want standards, you want processes, and you want to allow people to run their own business. So I think Stretch Zone has done a good job of kind of managing, being a provider of the things that it needs to provide and allowing people to operate their own business. But if someone joins the network and opens a store, it's their business and their store, following company guidelines, but they get to hire and train and execute their business, do their advertising and marketing, and be involved in their local community. It is their business.
Fantastic. And well, I mean, I guess this starts touching on the CIO portion of that, right? So how do you go about that, helping those franchisees with their systems? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I've spent most of my career in organizations that have members, not just customers. So subscription-based, recurring revenue. And essentially, when you have a personal services business like that, it's very heavily member-centric. So in the Stretch Zone model, people join and they get services. They can purchase services and stuff. So in this type of ecosystem, the core system of record is what we call member management systems. And in health and wellness and leisure, there's a handful of players that have been around and provide services. And we want those systems to do what they do. So that's really the member management, agreements, payment processing, time clocks, just the core functionality of what an organization needs to run a member-centric business. So then what we focus on are building systems that sit on top of that, that really is where the member and the organization meet. So things like a mobile app, a customer portal, where people can, manage their memberships in our methodology, in our way. And when we were building the brand early, we didn't have a lot of systems. So we were more reliant on the member management system, and we were constantly running into problems where the member management system, we would get franchisees say it's broken, it doesn't work, all of these things. But the reality is just that our business rules were not correctly mapped to what that system could and couldn't do.
Hmm.
So things like, hey, I want to book an appointment. Well, we want rules in place to say, well, how many appointments can you have booked in the future? Because what happens a lot of times is people say, oh, I'll book, May the 23rd. Well, they may or may not remember that May 23rd appointment. And so we don't want to reserve that spot and keep other members. So we wanted to do things like that, implement our business rules. And so when we were able to develop and roll out the mobile app, then the member management system took a lot less blame in that process.
Nice. And was that something that you guys, custom built yourself, or was it built on
Yeah.
a platform?
Yeah, we custom built.
Fantastic.
I think it's very difficult for a lot of vendors to provide the brand specific functionality and workflows,
Yeah.
because they have to be all things to all people, and that's not fair.
No,
So when we
that's tough.
have very unique needs to us, I think we have to own, or at least my preference is that we own those member touch points, and that way we can ensure that we're delivering the messaging, that we want.
Yeah. Well, as you look at AI coming into everybody's lives and every industry, I can't help but think that you seem to be in an industry that may be pretty AI, resilient, right? As it's not like that's going to take somebody that AI is necessarily going to take that job, right? Or even you're still going to want a human doing that. Maybe years in the future when we become so comfortable with humanoid robots doing things, but that's a
Yes.
long way down the road, right? I don't think that's, in the near future for us. So I think that's pretty. I think that's probably the route for you guys, a pretty safe bet for every franchisee. But what about on the back end? Is AI, does that play a role in operations or security? What's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's exactly that. And I think like most people, we're still trying to figure it out.
Hmm.
And I don't know what your perspective is, but if you think you have your stack figured out and your roadmap and your plan, you better not wait a day because it could change, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge to me right now is picking the right time with the right stack to develop solutions, um, And I think that that's a really big challenge. So to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. We are in no danger of any time in my professional career, like that'll be long past me when we're comfortable with robots delivering our service. But what we are looking at and working on and implementing are ways that AI can empower and amplify kind of the business processes that we have now. So, what everybody's doing, how do we make employees more efficient?
Yeah.
How do we understand kind of the voice of the customer and using AI to kind of synthesize reviews and help us pinpoint where problems exist. One of the things that is unique to our type of business is that regardless of the four walls and how that's structured, people come for the service and they come for the interaction and the service that's delivered by a human.
Yeah.
And so understanding as a business when you have a problem with that human delivering that service, the faster you can understand that and either coach that person up or make a change in that person, the better your business is going to be.
Yeah.
So I think those are the types of things that we're really focused on in using AI.
I think the area that is most fascinating to me is where AI and really I'd say more the machine learning portion of AI comes in and really helps on the security side, right?
Mhm.
I think it for the last 10 years or so, it's been it's overlooked largely. And now that AI is in everybody's, the forefront of everybody's mind, everybody's thinking LLM, but LLM doesn't work so great on the security side. It works great when you're talking about adding AI to your SOC, right? And it can now analyze an event and then give you the human, easily readable version of, oh, hey, this is what happened. I think that's freaking awesome. I love it. I think Sentinel One and CrowdStrike are doing really cool stuff there where you can, have an LLM tell you, oh, this is exactly what happened. AI is beautiful there. Um, but I think where it gets really exciting, I think we kind of see the future is in products like Darktrace, where you've got machine learning working on, as the AI for your email, for your network, for your cloud. And now it understands that, oh, Keith doesn't write emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, or Keith always writes emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. So suddenly he's writing them at 7 a.m. and he's never up at 7 a.m. This is weird. Or an application starts doing something funky. That's weird. I'm going to stop this. That I think is what we're seeing now with this AI accelerated vulnerability attacks, right? Where kids, and I'm going to say kids, these bastards, and are using AI and weaponizing it, and you have machine speed attacks of vulnerabilities that are completely unknown. So these 0-day vulnerabilities, and they're rapidly accessing systems and exploiting them. I think the only solution, it is not the traditional patching. We're going to patch it. Like there's holes in the ship that you didn't know were there. You need a way of detecting, oh, there's water in the boat. Where's that? Let me take care of that. Let me get rid of this water. Oh, I see where the water came from. Let's address that. Or the old way of, oh, did the boat manufacturer, notify us of a leak in the hull because they had a defect here? That's ridiculous, right? I get it. It's important, but in today's day and age, we need systems that are doing it automatically and seeing, hey, something weird's happening at machine speed because we can't do it as humans. So I think that's where it gets really exciting is seeing stuff like that. And I'm really excited to see more of that come out. I mean, Darktrace is a great example. You get some others in email like Abnormal, which is very similar, does this same type of thing. But I think as we see more of that come out, I'm an optimist, and I think that is how the good guys are going to win this fight. It's the only way. I mean,
Yeah.
we see it like the historically this has been a knife fight, but now the bad guys have brought automatic weapons to this. And if we can't just keep showing up with our sword to the knife fight and be like, yeah, we're the good guys. I'm sorry, they brought a machine gun, right? How do you beat, right? So I think that's how we beat them. So for me, that's really exciting. Uh, but for other people, maybe not so much. What are your thoughts on AI and security like that?
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think the challenge for us in an organization of our size is having the resources to even understand what the current issues are.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I said before is that the pace of change is so fast and getting faster. I just don't think it's possible for a small team to stay abreast of what they should even be looking for and trying to understand. So, without the ability to leverage these kind of tools
Yep.
to stay current on the research and stay current on that and help us in auditing our vendors
Yeah.
that take a lot of that hump. I just don't think it's possible without it.
No, you look at bad people use vulnerability, management stuff like Tenable, great product, but
Mhm.
you once you deploy that, you're like, we have hundreds of vulnerabilities to patch, and I'm sorry, who's got that kind of time? Unless you're, as you pointed out, unless you have a massive, IT infrastructure, organization, lots of manpower. You can't get to it all. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
you've got a day job. Small and medium-sized businesses, forget about it. Enterprise even, it's a tough one. I think the future of vulnerability is AI-powered detection. And I don't know that we'll ever get to the point where it's or that it would even matter to have AI doing the vulnerability patching because sometimes you patch something and it causes more problems, and we can't just have AI patching all this stuff and suddenly it's
That's
breaking
right.
things left and right. So I don't know. I think the future is it doesn't matter that there's a vulnerability. If it gets exploited, we see it and it gets taken care of. Yes, you patch, where possible with updates that just come out and kind of in the normal, kind of pace of the manufacturer put this out. Fantastic, great. It gets patched automatically. It didn't break anything. We can't be as an industry on the cutting edge of patching everything because we have day jobs. Like that can't be our sole job. I think it really that is perhaps my favorite use of AI, that and self-driving cars. I mean, I don't know about you, but we've had Teslas in my family now for 11, 12 years, and watching the progression of
Uh,
of of self-driving has been fantastic because
sure.
initially it was that drunk toddler and you're like, you're going to get me arrested, right? To
Yeah.
now, to then it became this teenager learning how to drive. Now it's a teenager who's gotten their license. I still don't trust you, and I don't like the way you react sometimes. But I'll give you an example. The other day we were driving back from New York back to DC, and we were on autopilot, and this car veers into our lane, and the our car moved at like the same time out of the way. It was like they were dancing. There was no way I could have moved that fast. I couldn't have reacted that fast, but it was milliseconds. I was so shocked and impressed that I was like, well, that's awesome. I mean, now you see the future. Like that was amazing because they probably would have hit us, right? It maneuvered out and slowed us down, and it was brilliant. But that lulls you into this false sense of security because you still have to watch because it's still a teenager,
Yeah.
and you can't be like, "Yep, you got it." But that day is definitely coming, right? Where I can now see it. We see it in the not so distant future, and it's fascinating. That one that I get excited about. It's fun
All right.
stuff.
So let me talk about this because I think that is a perfect segue to something that you kind of asked earlier. So my wife recently got a Tesla
Mhm,
Model Y and is so enamored with the self-driving,
mhm.
right?
Yep.
And I'm a little more skeptical because I'm a little older. However, she uses it all the time, and not that she can't drive and not a competent driver, but
Really.
it's beneficial to her. And she has a faith in the system that it's better than what she would be
Mhm.
in certain times. And so I think as this relates to the stores, my daughter, human driver, recently had a wreck, completely her fault, 100%, ran through a red light. All right, fine. Luckily, no one was hurt other than her vehicle. However, the self-driving car, even though I agree with you, it is not perfect and it is not more mature. The question I think for me that I think now is how much better it is than the average human.
Yeah.
And so as it relates to our business, one of the things that we're in process of implementing is how do we leverage AI to answer inbound phone calls
Yep.
and make outbound calls. So if we have someone that has an appointment that they don't show up for, they don't call, how do we call and follow up and get them to reschedule? And there's a larger group of people my age and older that are like, well, I want a human because I don't trust the AI to do this. And then I sit and I listen to some of our calls. I'm not sure that the 19-year-old, 20-year-old person working the front desk, if they make the call,
Yep.
are they going to say the right thing? And yeah, maybe somebody can detect an AI voice and they're not comfortable. And I understand all the issues of that. But at least from our brand's perspective, knowing that the call will be made and that the right thing will be said, within the right guardrails and reasons, I think we're at that point of the self-driving car. And so that's what I'm telling our franchisees is,
I love that.
yeah, that 15, 18, $20 an hour employee, if they come to work
Yep. Yep.
and they stay longer than 6 months and you don't have to constantly retrain them, it's time to really start considering being okay with those types of technologies.
Oh, it really is. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is a really great example. And I'd love to, if you don't mind sharing, sharing your experience with that. Like, how did you go about shopping for that? What did you end up, landing on? And what's that experience been for you? So for others, because I think pretty much everybody is contemplating that same thing right now. Like, how could we put that in? And I think that is a natural, kind of next step for a lot of businesses kind of dipping their toe into that customer facing AI. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, so if you spend 5 minutes on X or YouTube, you're going to see 1,000 tech bros that can set up, and I think there's a whole range of vendors that are providing these voice agents, and people are using certain types of harnesses to kind of, in 2025 it was the N8Ns and the Makes and Zapiers of the world of, oh, we can take a call, but then you dig into it, you realize it's not that easy,
Mhm.
right? How do you deal with prompt injections and how do you deal with security and guardrails?
Yep.
And if you rein all that stuff in so tightly that you feel comfortable with it, then it's really just an automation. You
Yeah.
lose that kind of agentic part of it. But I think in the current models, we're kind of crossing that. So for us, I think it's a couple things. You have the AI portion, the tactical of being able to, understand the voice, the request, and actually call the tools and do the things. But the harder part is really how do you have the data foundation that make those agents useful?
Yeah.
And so in our industry, I use this joke all the time. If I put 100 facility owners, and this is across the general, health and fitness and wellness, if I put 100, owners in a room and I said, tell me what a member is, I'm going to get 250 definitions of what a member is.
Mhm.
So what we had to work on really is the data and the mapping to provide a consistent layer of what is a member for this organization and how does that cross and what are the rules, cancellations and freezes and bookings and whatever. And so you cannot be having a non-deterministic AI trying to interact with those systems. So for us, it's really been focusing on this kind of data layer. And I guess the fancy term is just the context that the AI needs to be able to execute.
Yep.
And I think we're getting really, really close in that.
Yep.
And so I'm very optimistic. That's our biggest initiative right now is how can we take the pressure off of our franchisees from a payroll labor standpoint and just a quality
Yeah.
control. The
Oh,
Big Mac has to be the Big Mac. And you
yep.
can't have a location that wants ketchup on their Big Mac because then it's not a Big Mac. Doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it's not a Big Mac. So that's where we are right now is I think we've got the agentic part figured out. And I think we're at a point now where I'm comfortable and really kind of turning that loose. But it's just making sure that we have the right data and context that we can provide in there that's consistent.
And can you walk us through like what your solution looks like? Yeah, what you ended up going with? Is it, in terms of let's say the model and the provider on the voice side, what's that look like?
Yeah, so the provider that we're using kind of as our infrastructure middleware is a group called Blend. And then we're partnering with SoundHound
Okay, cool.
um, on the voice side.
Yep.
And, everybody demos well. Now let's peel the onion back and let's talk about specific use cases of how do you know which service to book and which time and all the business rules that
Yeah.
people will be. So it really is, to me, even in the age of AI, you can't be all things to all people. So we chose, SoundHound has obviously a publicly traded company, and they have deep expertise in voice recognition, and their agentic systems are continuing to develop. And so then the blend systems are able to take data from our member management system and all the other context that's needed. So that's how we're kind of putting that together
Yeah.
um, in that solution now.
That's super cool. I mean, and I think that's a really great combination, and and a good one for people to hear. And it'd be so. You're just in the process of starting to roll this out,
We are.
or
So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we have some targeted locations, and we're going to start beta testing and and
that's
and
great.
seeing. And part of the issue, as I talked about earlier with a franchisee, is in a franchisee type of world, is do they have the right abilities in place to be able to do that? So we don't mandate, as an example, phone systems.
Okay.
So how do we work with these franchisees to make sure that they have the ability to even route calls into our system?
Yeah.
And then how do we, provision it such that, I think there's the YouTube tech bros, oh, we just set this up. And then you start talking about compliance and regulations, and anybody knows that, when you make outbound calls or you send outbound text messages, you have to be compliant.
Yep.
And many states have, started issuing, quiet periods. And so how do you respect each state's quiet period? And how do you, make sure that each individual, because it's a separate business owned by an independent, how are they registered
Yep.
so that their campaigns are approved? So that's been the hardest part to me, really, in this last mile,
Yeah.
is making sure that we are compliant, that we're following the rules, and making sure that we don't run the risk of doing something that we shouldn't be doing, especially when you're talking about outbound um, efforts.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting because I suppose, um, yeah, you've got a real challenge there when you've got, hundreds of franchise locations, and they're all different. There's different state laws for everybody. But I guess on the bright side, you've got all that information centrally, right? You're still managing that central system, and it still goes out as a stretch zone call, right? So you just want to make sure that on the compliance side, you're good to go. So
Yeah. The
that's
state of
fantastic.
Texas recently, I think it's Bill 140 or whatever, which has very explicit, rules around what they want from outbound. Well, we got to make sure we're compliant with this. And those aren't static. Those change and are
Yeah.
constantly evolving. So, back to the security question, that's why I think having the right partners in these types of things is really critical.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate you walking us through that because I think that's going to be really helpful to other people. And I'd love to have you back on, after you've had a chance to start, you've rolled
Sure.
it out. And because I think a lot of people here right now, when it comes to AI, the ROI isn't what they expected on a lot of their AI projects, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's happening a lot. Yours, I think this is a really great use case and a really great example where I think the ROI is going to be there. It's going to be pretty obvious, and even it'll be interesting to see how those numbers break down if it was one of these things where like, wow, we saved a fortune, or no, you know what? It basically about the same as if we had the front desk people doing it at all these locations, but now it's quality control across the entire organization. So
I,
it,
I, I
it'll
think,
be fun.
yeah, I mean, we're really optimistic for a couple of things. One, the quality control we talked about, but the others is that if these systems are designed and developed where they're really outcome-based pricing, I think from a franchisee, it makes a lot of sense. I would much rather pay a higher per call rate with using AI and technology for successful outcome than paying my 15, $18 an hour person to sit there for 8 hours that may only take 10 or 12 calls over the day. So I think there's a really compelling case
Yep.
for that type of model,
Yeah.
and we're super excited about that.
I'm excited to see how it goes. I mean, it's
Yeah,
exciting stuff, and it'll be really cool to kind of see how that plays out. A great use case. It'll be, and I'm glad we actually got to have this conversation now versus just,
sure.
oh, we rolled this out and this is what it is. Kind of cool to hear it, in progress, and it'll be really cool to do the follow up and hear how it goes. Um,
Sure.
that's great. So, what's your timeline on that? You think?
Every day, all day. Like back in 2025, like there was still this optimism that AI would make our lives easier and people could, have more leisure time or whatever. But I think the peers that I talked with were working harder than we've ever worked
Yeah.
because now things that we were not possible are now possible. And like I said earlier, every day that goes by, you fall farther behind. So me and my team, we're working harder than we've ever worked.
That's
So we are in flight, and hopefully over the next days and weeks, not weeks and months, we'll have some locations up and testing, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and continue to iterate and get better.
That's awesome.
But
I
I am convinced of this. Like I think the companies that don't embrace this because they had the bad, chat GPT experience where it hallucinated or whatever, I think it's going to be really hard for them to compete as we move forward. So
Yeah,
that's the approach we're taking. Let's get on the bus.
100%. I think that's the only smart way to do it. I mean, if you're not looking for ways to integrate it and improve efficiencies, I think it's a mistake to be letting people go. I mean, obviously that's a very general, statement. Every business is different. But as a whole, it's like, oh, we've got computers now, so if you just rewind 20, 30 years, we've got computers now, so we're letting go of half the workforce. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like the business is going to grow, exponentially because we're using AI and we're not every user is now supercharged. It doesn't make sense to be cutting it down unless, of course, you were bloated to begin with, which I think is the problem with a lot of these tech companies. You hear story after story from kids who got jobs at these firms, and they're just sitting around with nothing to do. So I get it. There's a lot of bloat there. They get really excited about hiring, and then then that's the natural progression, right? So maybe that's just a trimming of the fat. But I fear that it gives the wrong impression to too many people when large tech companies are cutting out thousands of people. Then it's like, oh no, jobs are going away because of AI. No, these were just bloated organizations that were inefficient, and they're now adjusting. I think that's more the case because I haven't seen too many companies, small, medium, or large, that have actually, implemented anything on the AI side and be like, well, we don't need these people anymore.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Did you read the article that Jack Dorsey posted on X about what he did at Block?
No.
Yeah, he came out with basically a manifesto, and I don't want to paraphrase it because I'm certainly not that smart. But his point is that organizations will transform, and that what's happening in this long term, I'm very optimistic. But what is happening in this middle term as we transition is that the types of work where people's job is facilitating moving information from one place to the other. I think organizations are going to have to eliminate those types of jobs where people have to pick up a piece of paper from this side of the desk and take it to that side of the desk. I think they will be replaced by people that can actually do things and use the technologies. And so, long-term optimist. But then, in my little town where I live now, the city leaders have started implementing roundabouts and replacing, four-way stops and red lights. And the number of people where I live that cannot navigate a roundabout, that are confused, they don't understand it. Do I go? Do I not go? How does this work? I think it's going to be a really challenging time
Yeah.
for those types of people. So we're trying to take our organization and bring people with us, and it's a lot of education, a lot of seminars, a lot of kind of slow walking people through these changes. And if you have a business owner that, again, doesn't understand their phone system, doesn't know if they can transfer a call or not, right? Talking to them about harnesses and agents and guardrails, it's a challenge. So I think we have to be really mindful of helping bring people along with us. But my team, we're full sprint.
Yeah. No, I think that is, I completely agree. I think that is the path forward, and it will get a little dicey as people struggle to, to adjust. But ultimately, I think the economy is going to grow immensely. Jobs
Right.
are going to become easier, faster, better. It's going to be more enjoyable, honestly. It's like going from factory work, that's all manual to, oh, it is a much more modern factory where we don't have to break our backs, right? Doing this. The heavy lifting is done by the machines. Cool. That alone is so nice, right? The
For sure.
dangerous stuff is done by a machine. So great, right?
Great.
So I think that's what it's going to look like. Now, long term, I don't know that we're ready for that economic transition to that Star Trek future where everything is abundant. I don't know how we get there, right? I don't think anybody does. But that's going to be, I don't know. That's a bridge we're going to have to cross when we get to it, and it's going to be a scary one. But maybe it won't. Who knows? But I do think in the meantime, however long that meantime is, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years, I think it's going to be a really exciting and much more enjoyable time for people to be working, because you're going to get to do more human activities and fewer, just repetitive, mechanical things. So I think and we're going to get to do cool stuff like your phone system. I mean,
We're going to
it,
get to do cool stuff.
it's just so cool. Um, Keith, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been so much fun. I look forward to having you back on later
Sure.
after you've implemented that, and we'll have another discussion. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about Stretch Zone?
Yeah, so like everyone else, we have a website. And so it's stretchzone.com. Feel free to check us out. And we have some uses of technology and AI on our system and allowing people to book and stuff. So you can check that out. And then obviously I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to hit me up.
Fantastic. Well, until next time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.